everybody. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. I'll remind everybody hit that like, share, and subscribe button for me. There's a PayPal link down there for anybody who wants to join share some love, and the StreamYard link is there for anybody that wants to join the panel. We got John and Russ with us tonight. How you doing tonight, guys?
Good, brother Keith.
I'm doing well.
How you doing?
Good. We finally got our fall here, I think. We got up to 58 yesterday, and we barely made it into 50 today. And prior to that, it's been consistently upper 80s for a while now. So it's a nice relief.
I think we got a little of that here as ourselves.
Yep. I think it should be heading your way.
Yep, it's a little chilly. Good to see you, John.
Yeah, good to see you too, Russ.
So we're going to go over what federal is. What exactly is it? We're going to look at Black's Law and more. And the first one I want to bring up, you guys have been on this boat for a while, the two of you, and I'm sure you're familiar with 28 U.S.C. 3002. And for everybody else's, we're going to edification, we're going to bring this up and show them. And
I was wondering with the topic there, federal, if that had anything to do with the state militia before martial law and the military took over.
Or the Federation, right.
Well,
Right.
what we're going to go over tonight is going to help explain that, because it relates directly to Federation and what Federation is and what the Federalist Papers were, the Confederacy when it was established, all this, and it's going to show us. And I want to see. Let me pull it up here. I did a video a while back. I'm going to have to take a minute to look for it. But you big dummy corporation. And basically, that's what you are in this imperfect usufruct. They've switched positions with yourself and them, or through implied contracting. It's implying that you are an agent of a federation. And so we're going to look at these terms, and let me see if I can big dummy corporations. There we go. I'm going to grab this video and drop the link down in the chat for everybody.
They've hijacked a lot of our words. We have governance, they have government. We have federation, they have federal. Militia, military.
Yep. So there's a link to the Ya Big Dummy Corporation video that I did that will help explain some of the implied contracting that we've done that puts us in that position. And so let's get into this. 28 U.S. Code 3002 definitions. Counsel for the United States, court means any court created by Congress of the United States, excluding the United States tax court. So anytime there's a tax issue and they want to bring up taxes, that's not a court of the United States. Okay. Debt. Debt means an amount that is owing to the United States on account of a direct loan, or a loan insured or guaranteed by the United States, or an amount that is owing to the United States on account of a fee, duty, lease, rent, service, sale of real or personal property, overpayment, fine, assessment, penalty, restitution, damages, interest, tax, bail, bond, forfeiture, reimbursement, recovery of a cost incurred by the United States or other source of indebtedness to the United States. No one else. But that is not owing under the terms of a contract originally entered into by only persons other than the United States. And it includes any amount owing to the United States for the benefit of an Indian tribe or individual Indian, but excludes any amount to which the United States is entitled under Section 3011A. Debtor means a person who is liable for a debt or against whom there is a claim for a debt. Okay? Those are all commercial venues. Let's go down here to 15. United States means a federal corporation, an agency, department, commission, board, or other entity, meaning these are all entities of the United States, or an instrumentality of the United States. Let's take a look at the next one, which is 5 CFR 575.102, another set of definitions. And notice this one here is under 28 U.S. Code, which is the judiciary. Okay. The next one, five CFR, is administrative personnel. Okay. This is where those courts come in. They're all operating administratively over personnel. They do not have any jurisdiction over anyone else except personnel that they have an administrative contract with directly. Anything else is an implied contract. It is not a valid contract unless both parties are knowing, willful, and intentful in that contract. 575.102 definitions. Agency means an executive agency or legislative branch agency included in 5 U.S.C. 5102A1. (5 U.S.C. 5102A1). Agency means an executive agency, Library of Congress, Botanic Garden, the Government Publishing Office, the Office of the Architect of the Capitol, and the Government of the District of Columbia. But does not include a government-controlled corporation. The Tennessee Valley Authority, the Virgin Islands Corporation, the Atomic Energy Commission, the Central Intelligence Agency, the National Security Agency, Department of Defense. Remember 5 U.S.C. 301? Applicable to Department of Defense, departmental regulations, minimum birth registration standards. The Government Accountability Office, the Office of Director of National Intelligence, the Defense Intelligence Agency, Department of Defense, or the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, Department of Defense. This is where y'all get suckered. Employee means an individual employed in or under an agency. Position means the work consisting of the duties and responsibilities assignable to an employee. Class or class of positions includes all positions which are sufficiently similar as to kind or subject matter of work, level of difficulty and responsibility, and the qualification requirements of the work to warrant. The warrant is already there. It's called the qualification requirements of the work. Remember that 5 U.S.C. 301 minimum birth registration standards, and how I've proven that it is it is not valid because it is not registered in the United States, because there is no birth registration in the United States. Therefore, the certification requirements so that you can qualify for employment by presentment of proper ID is dependent upon that birth certificate and its validity. Any question, guys?
Oh,
Well,
no questions.
Okay, so
No,
back to the
definitely.
5. Okay, back to the 5 CFR 575.102. Authorized agency official means the head of an agency, or an official who is authorized to act for the head of the agency in the matter concerned. When you filled out the SS5, you became an authorized representative in place of the Social Security Commissioner to place liabilities on the public record. However, you didn't have the competencies, which means the knowledge, skills, abilities, behaviors, and other characteristics an individual needs to perform the duties of a position. Had you understood the duties of the position in filling out the application, first and foremost, you might have changed your positioning.
Which brings to mind, Keith, remember when I was mentioning to you about Eastern Kentucky University, how it was established in 1906, but in 1906 it was called Eastern State Normal School. And then in 1966, but don't let me jump ahead. And not also in 1906, the curriculum was the teachers taught the students to be teachers.
Correct. And that's why I say, if you want a republic, or you have a republic, if you can keep it. And if you want that republic back, you have to understand the only way a republic stands is the people knowing the law, the people knowing how it runs, the people having the oversight and the discretion in that oversight to quit being bitch-ass slaves and saying, well, you're the government, so I guess I got to listen to you. Never in a day. The government there is there for the benefit of the people only. It is never to be there for the detriment.
Fast forward to 1966, it changed names to, it became Eastern Kentucky University. Fast forward to now, I mean, just look at everything, and it would seem in 88, they X'd the chairman and his wife in Richmond, Kentucky, that was also the banking commissioner. So there's the teachings, and then the profits from the teachings.
Yep. And they're false prophets based on a
in 83, they killed them. In 80s, when all these opioids hit the streets, and everything else.
Yep. So here's that federal government.
On the
Go ahead. Go ahead.
If we put beneficiary on the S5, that would change it, right? Because they can't seek it.
Right. When they have you sign that SS5, what they do is they have you sign it over here on the left, and then they put more squares over here for you to answer after you sign it.
If we put like beneficiary on the S5, that would change the equation because they can't seek information from beneficiaries. That's trust fraud.
Correct. Correct. So there's no problem having the Social Security. There's no problem having the Social Security number as long as you know how to invoke it in its proper time, in its proper legal time. If you're not on the clock, then they have no right to even request you of that number. It is only when you are on the clock and there is a debt being imposed against the United States that you are partaking in that they can require anything for the use of that Social Security number. And even then, again, if it's stated as benefit, I'm the third party to this contract here, and I'm supposed to receive a benefit of proper compensation for my labor. And if you're running an investment using my name on the other side to create credits, I'm the principal in that investment, and I get my comeuppance as well in that. That's how this.
The problem is we don't have a contract in place saying that.
Correct.
It's all based off assumptions and presumptions. So until you have a contract in place stating that, if they're going to assume you're a beneficiary, and a beneficiary has a right not to know.
Correct.
But wouldn't that benefit be for life and not one's imagination?
Depends on how you work it. Again, it technically, yes, for life. And remember, one of the first primary elements of a contract is to have equal consideration for equal benefit. So the benefit is there, but the problem is people end up contracting into it for equal consideration, and that's not the way it's supposed to be done. You're supposed to have equal consideration as a creditor coming forth to charge that system up. Like I said before, if my neighbor is sitting out here with a car that won't start, and he comes to ask me to borrow my battery charger, I take it out, I hook it up to his system, I attach to his system. That's an attachment. While I'm attached to that system, I charge his battery up. When I'm done charging that system, does he keep my charger? No, I get my charger back in full. I'm whole. He's whole too. How does that work? Well, the opposite side is I go out and I charge his car up and I blow his fucking battery up. Now what? Did I overcharge?
Now you owe him compensation.
So we have to really think about what we're doing in each situation and be prepared for those consequences. If you're going to go into helping somebody, even if you want to be gratuitous, you have to understand how you're helping them, how it could turn bad, and how you can come forth with a remedy in that. Because if you do so in an event like that and don't have a remedy, now you're in trouble. That's the problem with people. They don't understand how these contracts work, and that there are certain clauses you can put in there for these things. Hold harmless indemnification, one of the primary ones.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's like you did assurance versus insurance, right?
Yep.
Hey, how are you, Annie?
So we're going over federal, and we went over the definition of 28 U.S. Code 3002, federal corporation. United States is a federal corporation. And now we see federal government means all entities of the government of the United States. Now, United States is a corporation, and all those other entities are like kind, so they too are corporations. Those entities, all corporations. Federal government means all corporations of the government of the United States, which itself is a corporation.
Well, and one thing I jumped in really quick is because I saw something about Indian tribes. Sorry to interrupt.
Yep. And we'll get to that some other time, but
okay.
That's imperative to the term adoption. But when we talk about federal government, means all entities of the government of the United States, and United States business means the United States citizen, and you take upon that citizenship, you are undertaking. You're the undertaker. You're the one that determines death. Okay? So.
Well, that term tenure right there is a very important term that a lot of people overlook.
Yep. Tenure as in residency or apprenticeship. Tenure is a time span.
Mm-hmm. It's also, if you look at how schools work, right? And this is all the land banks, and schools are the land banks. Tenure for a professor means 10 years of basically them, not being able to be fired or thrown out or anything. It takes a lot to get a tenured professor kicked out.
Right. And
so it's the house.
And that's because that tenure is, like I said, it's a span of time. It's a contract with a hold harmless indemnification. No matter what I do, you can't hold it against me. I got 10 years. So as long as, within bounds, of course. Can't go around murdering the students, of course. But the next thing that we have, it says, including the United States Postal Service and the Postal Regulatory Commission. And what I want to point out here, everybody, is that, again, in 18 U.S.C. 8, very simple statement in there under obligations and other securities of the United States, it says, between one comma and another, in all lowercase English, no specifications. This is a general statement, and it covers everything. And it very distinctly says, stamps and other representatives of value. Okay? That's the tie into the postal rate, because they're the money changers around the world. They're the ones that have representatives of all values around the world. They're the ones that have those scales for converting those monetary values. Okay, the next one, I've got my notes written up here. Get Hadassah back. Stop that screen share. And when it comes to the Indian tribes you mentioned, I wanted to bring that up. That is about adoption, folks. Okay, notice I've been mentioning all along here that everything we're talking about is adoption. All these laws are adoptions. They're not laws. They're adoptions from other places, and then they're formatted to fit their style for their use.
They pass an act, right? Yep. And then they wait for a year, and then they adopt it.
Okay. Here we go.
Lots of adopting.
So we went over the 28-3002 and 5 CFR, federal. American law, it says, this is from Black's Law Dictionary 4th. It says, belonging, hold on just a second, folks. I'm going to close this door. Come on. Come on. Okay. Sorry about that, folks. So, belonging to the general government or union of the states. Notice this is the only thing capitalized here is B. Everything else is concise English, belonging to the general, belonging to the general government. What is the general government, guys? Anybody got an answer?
The general government would probably be the people, wouldn't it?
Bingo. Hold on just a second. Okay, sorry about that. So, the general government is we the people. And that is the power base. That is the foundation of any government. Because any government that is set up by the people. You don't have a czar unless the czar is voted in by people. It used to be a legacy thing where the king would pass the throne to his heir. Well, that doesn't happen so much anymore, except maybe in England, a couple other places. But in the democratic commercial world that we live in, this modern society, the commercial aspect has nothing to do with the throne. It has to do with your contracts. And you've been duped into it. Now, a lot of it gets generated towards the throne. I'll agree to that. But it really doesn't have as much to do with the throne as it does to do with your being implied in those contracts and not knowing about it. So, belonging to the general government or union of the states, founded on or organized under the Constitution or laws of the United States. The United States has been generally styled in American political and judicial writings, 28 U.S.C. 3002, the Judicial Code, Federal
Chicago style.
Corporation. No, the 28 U.S. Code 3002, U.S. Code, Government Office Publishing Style.
It's why whenever they put anything in contracts, especially with the SEC, you'll notice that they'll always put what font size and what font they're using and where it's going to be placed and all that kind of stuff. It's very much the styling of that contract as well as the contract.
Yep, absolutely. So it goes on to say, a federal government. The term has not been imposed by any specific constitutional authority, but only expresses the general sense. See, it has no imposition, folks. It is your belief that does it alone. These people pushing their authority have no authority. Them pushing it is their belief alone that they have it. Once you expose the definition and everything, the term has not been imposed by any specific constitutional authority, but only expresses general sense and opinion upon the nature of the form of government. This is from Black's Law Dictionary 4th, folks. This is what they use in their administrative courts. This is the style they use in those administrative courts.
In the judicial, they'll use Valentine's, though.
Correct. In the administrative courts, they use the Valentine's definitions, any definition they want to. When it comes to the judicial office, they're stuck with using the general senses of opinion only. They have no law. It's all adoption. In recent years, there is observable a disposition to employ the term national in speaking of the government of the Union. Neither word settles anything as to the nature or powers of the government. So you can go around claiming you're a federal employee all you want. Fuck you, it don't mean dick squat. You can go around crying, I'm an American national, I'm an American state national, I'm an Iowa national. It matters not. Those are opinions. Like I've said many times before, a definition is merely another man's opinion. Greetings, Starseed. How you doing tonight, sister?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. Glad you joined us. You got anything on it so far? You been listening, or?
I haven't. I just got back from the grocery store, so I don't know where we're at, but I've got some stuff on where I've been today. You probably already know, though.
Oh well, we'll keep going, and anytime that something clicks that segues what you had going on today, let us know.
Absolutely.
So we're just discussing the definition of federal and what it means. And I'm sure you already know 28 U.S.C. 3002, United States is a federal corporation, blah, blah, blah. United States business means the United States citizen. And we read from 5 CFR 575.102. Federal government means all entities of the government of the United States, including the United States Postal Service and the Postal Regulatory Commission, for all things posted to all accounts in the name of the United States. That's the debtor, and that is the debt. So, federal is somewhat more appropriate if the government is considered a union of the states. National is preferable if the view is adopted that the state governments and the union are two distinct systems, each established by the people directly, one for local and the other for national purposes.
So would that be the post office and the railroad?
All roads lead to Rome, yep, and every road is postally owned.
And the railroad had that lovely easement on everything going for 10 miles in each direction from every railroad that lease or easement just ended last November.
And don't forget about the currency.
And the easement is an environmental protection easement. It is a matter of conservation of wildlife and fisheries. Did you know that animal includes but is not limited to man? And you can use that to your advantage on any property, and they acknowledge this. This is the right of way. Those right of ways they talk about, those are the specific easements that go around each property. It's for your passage, your right of passage and your right of portage, so that you can still cross the land without being blocked by some kind of fence.
Would that tie into private bridges or maybe private bridges? That's what it was.
Yeah, it all has to do with the right of passage and portage and your private right of use as averse to any federal or corporate entity. Every last one of them has to abide by that conservation easement. That's why the First Amendment auditors get to go around doing those audits, because that company has to abide by it. And if they violate them and call it trespassing, they just violated their own contract to lease that land. And that lease,
the right-of-way manual in the Department.
That lease is bonded by the Postal Service with the number attached to the street name security, which is the name of the street securitized by the city that created the street. They're the name holder. Postal Service bonded it. That's the contract. And you're some kind of carrier. So, say that again now, Hadassah. What were you saying?
The right-of-way manual in the Department of Transportation. Sorry, a little loud. That's actually how they run all of the, basically all of your prison systems and everything.
Yeah, and that's why I've said many times. Mm-hmm. That's why I've said many times, those guys in prison, and I didn't realize it until 8 years ago. Those guys in prison, they're in there because they contracted themselves in there. They're in there by an agreement somewhere.
Mm-hmm. It's through the post office too, because it's the procurement manual in the post office that actually runs the probation and parole system.
But which is also stems down from the railroad, because the railroad has the lockbox services that connect directly to the Treasury and all of the other financial institutions, not to mention the comptroller.
And in the railroad, if you ever gone onto the IRS website and found it's a desk manual for the railroad, because the railroad actually has their own separate IRS or their own separate taxing system, and they actually use the IRS as their, collection agent.
I have an IRS, or not.
So are those
retirement number?
Those collection, the ones they're using for collection, would those be those state attorneys representing the chief counsel of the Internal Revenue Service in each state?
have no idea.
Not
There's-
actually. There's actually 3 directors that run that particular for the railroad. It's 3 directors that are elected every 5 years in interim. So 5 years one, and then 2 years later another, 3 years later another, blah blah blah.
It's not
But
the
it's
board
3
of trustees.
directors. Nope, it's 3 directors that actually run it. It's in that desk manual in the IRS. It's very interesting.
Gotcha.
If you got a way to drop that link, do so, please.
I'll look for it.
So it continues on as far as constitutional law, a term commonly used to express a league or compact between 2 or more states to become united under one central government. Okay? Federal government, the system of government administered in a state. So again, I don't care what they try to tell you. When we are talking to the people at the state, they do have everything to do with the federal government because it is a system of government that is administered in the state because they are part of the compact for that government. Okay? This is because of that right of passage and portage and landlocked states that wouldn't have access to the jurisdiction of admiralty maritime contract law across the sea because they have no waters and they have to go through territory foreign to their own. So they have to have a compact. Okay? Formed by the union or confederation of several independent or quasi-independent states. Also the composite state so formed. So, union or confederation. Confederation. That's what we're looking at, folks. So let's take a peek. In strict usage, there is a distinction between a confederation and a federal. Oops. Says you're there. We go. Between a confederation and a federal government. The former term denotes a league or permanent alliance between several states, each of which is fully sovereign and independent, and each of which retains full dignity, organization, and sovereignty, though yielding to the central authority a controlling power for limited purposes, such as external and diplomatic relations. The United States is a federal corporation for this purpose, a limited commercial purpose for extending admiralty maritime inland where it wouldn't otherwise be applicable. That is only done through a confederation of states that come together under a compact to create that central government that acts as a corporation. The states themselves are not corporations as republics, but by creating such a corporate entity, they now become subsidiaries as independent entities, each of their own compact. So that if one decides to disassociate, like California, it can do so, and the rest are still good. A little bit harder for a centralized state to do that doesn't have access to waterways. That's why it's inherently imperative that when people come together and form these kinds of governments, they understand how it runs, particularly those that are supposed to be self-governing. See, that's what Russ was saying about earlier. It's the teachers are supposed to be teaching us how to teach. That's why I'm doing this. I'm not here for my name or anything other than a message of teaching others how to teach. You feed a man a fish, you feed him. You give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. You teach him how to fish, you feed him for a lifetime, And the inherent primary principle is that you teach him how to teach so that it doesn't end with him just giving everybody fish. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, if we look at just the significance from the 80s until now, after, that killing of that family that was the chairman of the Board of Regents and the banking commissioner in 83, I mean, look at the huge change from there until now. So I'm sure at some point, all these guys got corrupted somehow, some way. I don't think, I don't know. It's kind of odd.
It's the people that are corrupt. And like I said, if you put a bunch of idiots in place of doing something they don't really have the skills, abilities, and such to do, they're not competent, then they should be removed. 5 CFR 575.102. Agent, agency, competencies, federal government, employee, it's all there. In this case, the component states are the units. United States. I've said this many times before as well. It is not United States. It is United States. And each postal unit has an agent living there. With respect to the Confederation, in this case, the component states are the units with respect to the Confederation. And the central government acts upon them, not upon the individual citizens. So when the federal government wants to come speak to me, I'm going to ask him what the fuck he's doing, trying to dig his nose into my private affairs. I have no contract with you. You have a contract with other people in government. Congress shall make rules for the government and the regulation of land and naval forces for this very purpose. In a federal government, on the other hand, the Allied States form a union, not, indeed, to such an extent as to destroy their separate organization or deprive them of quasi-sovereignty with respect to the administration of their purely local concerns. Every community has a purely local concern of their portion of the gross domestic product dependent upon your labor as an employee. But so that the central power is erected into a true state or nation possessing sovereignty, both external and internal. While the
And don't forget, your labor is property.
Correct. While the administration of national affairs is directed and its effects felt, not by the separate states deliberating as units, but by the people of all in their collective capacity as citizens of the nation. So what this is implying is that the city has, or the states each have a social compact with each other. And by that nature, it is inherent that the people also have that same kind of compact. We have to. We have to have faith, hope, and charity with each other. Charity being the most imperative of all three. The distinction is expressed by the German writers by the use of the words State-Bund and Bundesstaat, the former denoting a league or confederation of states, and the latter a federal government. So the confederation is the former, and the federal government is the latter, or state formed by means of a league or confederation. This is the UCC. You guys understand that? The UCC is the Uniform Commercial Code, which all these states use as their contract terms and conditions for federal acquisitions under 48 CFR 52.212-5. Contract terms and conditions required to implement statutes or executive orders - commercial items, commercial goods or services, excuse me. This next part is how they do it. Federal instrumentality. Remember, we read that in 28 CFR or 28 U.S.C. 3002. United States is a federal corporation or an instrumentality. So the federal instrumentality, a means or agency used in the imperfect usufruct by the federal government. A government agency immune from state control. This is their immunity, nothing more. It's a matter of control. And when they think the state has immunity of the people, wrong. You do not have immunity of the people. You keep pushing that immunity clause, and I guarantee you the people will rise up and remove your asses, not from the office, but from the face of the earth. It's happened before. It will happen again. History repeats itself. Keep pushing. Federal question. Cases arising under Constitution of the United States, acts of Congress, or treaties, and involving their interpretation and application. We've got the interpretations and applications right here in Black's Law Fourth. No matter what they want to say, that federal code does not apply because it's an opinion only. As a regular consensus, as it's known on the record, as we've read. What do you got, John?
It's Anderson's definition of the United States. It says, in America, the political entity formed by the adoption of the federal or national constitution.
There you go. Again, that's all it is. It's an adoption. And I told you where they adopted that Constitution from. It's the Constitution of the Universal Postal Union. All nations that fall under that charter have to have a subsequent constitution. And then the states' constitutions all concur with it as a maxim of equality among the states. And again, that correlates the same thing with the UCC. The UCC is a way for the states to make contract clauses according to their state, and then if it makes the law better, and the other states see this, they can legislate that law into their state codes too. And once a certain number of states, 23 of them, come together like that, they can then request a bill to the House on just a bill on Capitol Hill. Learn your history and how the system works, folks.
Yep.
And involving
There's private bills though too. Don't forget about that.
Correct. That's why I tell people at School of Rock, I'm just a bill. That's a public bill that's presented to the House. You want a private bill that's presented to the Senate. They're two different setups. The House is the commercial setup. Starseed is having a problem. Her device is not linking up. She's trying to get back, but she's there. But let's get back to it. And involving their interpretation and application. So what is the application of a federal government if it's just a consensus of an opinion of an adoption of a set of words, a constitution that is still subject to another constitution that has nothing to do with me? But again, this is why we have to come together with that faith, hope, and charity as people. That's how the nations come together themselves in this commercial platform. And it does a wonderful job. It's not a bad system. It's corrupt people that cause it to behave the way it does, or cause the effects that it has, and of which jurisdiction is given to federal courts are commonly described as involving a federal question. This is the 9th and 10th Amendments of that Constitution, where we have to clarify this Supremacy Clause in that 10th Amendment and its delegation of powers to the United States in the Constitution and not prohibited in that Constitution are therefore reserved to the states, are reserved respectively to the states or the people. And what we have to understand in that Supremacy Clause is that though the Constitution holds the supremacy over the states do not hold supremacy over the people. The people hold supremacy over the states and the Constitution, whether it be state, national, or international. Period. They cannot have that jurisdiction. That's the invoice. They cannot speak up. All they can do is put their shit on paper and let people read it. Can you read and comprehend English? You might be deceived, even if you think you do. Next one, Federal Trade Commission. Why are we talking about Federal Trade Commission? Why are we talking about Federal Trade Commission? Because it's an administrative body created by statute with only the duties and powers granted expressly or by fair implication. Chamber of Commerce versus Federal Trade Commission. Chamber of Commerce of Minneapolis versus Federal Trade Commission. Why do you suppose that is? Because it's got to have something to do with commerce, some kind of commercial trade. Totally different than private trading, folks. So, federated state is an independent central organism. I thought the federal government was a central government for the independent states. Now we have a federated state, which says it's an independent central organism, having its own machinery absorbing in view of international law. That's the UCC. And the individual states associated together because they contract together interstate and intrastate through those contract terms and conditions of those statutes and executive orders. You know what that federation is? Confederation. Ordinarily, an unincorporated association of persons for a common purpose. Ordinarily. This means that ordinance, as I said, is an adoption.
Or coordinates.
Coordinates, yes. An unincorporated association of persons for a common purpose. The common purpose is the local purpose. The labor force to keep the community going. And it's the association of persons, not of people. Okay?
So I actually found something very interesting today. Of all the 3-letter agencies that I've been dealing with and sending stuff out to, I found that only 2 of them, I've only found 2 that aren't in Washington, D.C. And they are the ones that are for us, or started out for us. The Social Security Administration and the Internal Revenue Service. Not the IRS, but the Internal Revenue Service.
Correct. The Internal Revenue Service is Ogden, Utah, and that is internally within the Department of Treasury in that office in Ogden, Utah, and Social Security is in Baltimore, Maryland. So, the next one, this is a term I found interesting as it relates to this, and this is eleemosynary. Eleemosynary comes from, oops, you gals having a hard time with your connections, aren't you?
Very much. They hate me being on lives.
I hear you. I hear you. Well, we hope to keep you.
Internal Revenue Service though is actually, it's not Ogden, Utah. It's Kentucky.
It depends on where you
Cincinnati.
are and what you're filing.
Yeah,
Actually,
yeah. I think there's.
Very
I
much
think there's.
so.
Yeah, I think there's actually two of them, and one is Ogden, the other one is Kentucky.
Well, actually,
well,
there's
there's
four.
also a
Is
Kansas,
there?
Missouri.
There's four. Yeah, there's Kansas City, Missouri, which is where Treasury is at. Then there's Philadelphia, of course, which is the international. Then you have
And that's
Cincinnati and Louisville, Kentucky. That's the one that is still hooked up to the Crown and everything. And then Ogden, Utah, which is now hooked up to one of the new quote unquote Treasury banks, which is in Las Vegas. That's for the Northwest Ordinance and all those peeps. But then you also have Texas, because
and that's
the Bureau of Fiscal Services. They're the
and
ones
that
that took over the Bureau of Public Debt,
and
and
that's
yeah.
and that's why you continue doing your research, because as I'm pointing out here, it's no longer it's never actually been a centralized government, and now what they're doing is they're outsourcing those agencies to particular states, and they've actually been doing it for a number of years since the 1950s when they incorporated the UCC into the state statutes. And what it's doing is it's allowing states like Arizona to perfect the child support laws or child custody laws. Missouri or Minnesota Rule 22 to perfect the title laws.
Well, because that's where
Florida,
Minnesota is,
Florida.
where Federal Reserve is headquartered. That's why
Well,
for
well,
that.
Minnesota is the Rule 22 where everybody does the fictitious name registering. So they perfect the statutes for the fictitious registration. Arizona perfects the laws for child custody and child family law stuff. Utah does another set of. So we got 50 states and 50 codes. You understand? Okay. So
that's why I brought it up earlier about those IRS council members of attorneys of each state, because obviously that railroad runs through all, and there's something big to all of this. And I urge everybody to, obviously, just as Keith did, to continue that research, because this shit just keeps getting deeper and deeper.
So Ely Mazenary comes from the late Latin word Elomazinarius, which is derived from the Greek word Elomazine. Elomazine means pity, act of kindness, alms, and comes from the word Elomon, which means compassionate. Okay? Elomazinary relating to distribution of alms, bounty, or charity, charitable. It was the first thing they did in this country when they wanted to distribute things across the lands. They built them railroads. The railroads are rail lines that keep things straight on track. It's a straight line. What's a ruler? It's a straight line. A rule. It's a rule road. The end of the line is the final destination where that long arm of the law reaches out. Okay? Elamazinary Corporation. A private corporation created for charitable and benevolent purposes. A private corporation, folks. The funny thing about it is that Ely, in Idoma exclamation, Ely is an exclamation used in the Idoma language to express the magnitude of what God has done when there are no words to convey it. Actions speak louder than words, folks. Ely is a surname that may be an English variant of Els or Ellis. It may also be a North German topographic name for someone who lived near alders, or a habitational name from a place with the word else in it.
What was that word?
Ely.
Because I noticed the Postal Service, the name of the address is La El Infant.
Yep. La Fontaine Plaza. The infant. What's the statue in Switzerland? Goblin eating a baby or something. Reminds me of it. Anyway, here's a video from Derek Gonzalez. I'm going to post this in chat. You guys can go check this out, see what he's got to say on federal government. And we're going to continue on here. There's Hadassah again as soon as her device comes up. But now we're going to get on to plenary. You guys have heard me speak about this before. We did etymology on plenary and plenipotentiary. And those are postal terms that they use. And here it says plenary admissions are those that which admit the truth of the matter without qualification, whether it be asserted as from information and belief or as from actual knowledge. So let's take a look at King James Version, John 8:14 through 20. I'm going to drop my screen share here real quick. Switch over. Bear with me. And in King James Version, John 8:14 through 20, Jesus answered and said unto them, though I bear record of myself, yet my record is true. For I know whence I came and whither I go. But ye cannot tell whence I come and whither I go. Ye judge after the flesh, I judge no man. And yet if I judge, my judgment is true. For I am not alone, but I and the Father that sent me. Saying here that he's judging the spirit, not the body. It is also written in your law that if that the testimony of two men is true. I am one that bear witness of myself, and the Father that sent me beareth witness of me. They said unto him, they said unto him, where is thy Father? This is where he gets them. Jesus answered, ye neither know me nor my Father. If ye had known me, ye should have known my Father also. In recognizing that he's speaking the truth. They wouldn't have then questioned, well, where's this Father of yours? These words spake Jesus in the treasury as he taught in the temple. What a coinkydink, huh, Russ? And no man laid hands on him, for his hour was not yet come. That legal time, folks. Keep teaching, coining your words with truth. That's all I'm here to do, folks. That's why I'm going over all these definitions and everything. And I appreciate your support. Please hit that like, share, and subscribe. As a reminder, there's a PayPal link down there for anybody who wants to share any love. Every bit is appreciated. And of course, the StreamYard link is down there for anybody that wants to join. So let me stop this and get back to my other presentation. And it says here, as we read de facto, in fact, indeed, actually, your free will act and deed is de facto. Okay? Everything you do and say is de facto. This phrase is used to characterize an officer, a government, a past action, or a state of affairs which must be accepted for all practical purposes, but is illegal or illegitimate. So when they take your actions as though similar to that of an officer in government and placate that you're an officer of the government, that is illegal. It is illegitimate. There is no legislation for it. It has not been legitimated. Okay? In this sense, it is contrary of de jure, which means rightful, legitimate, just, constitutional. Thus, an officer, king, or government de facto, in other words, the government actions, is one who is in actual possession of the office or supreme power. Now, you can keep believing that those federal government workers or employees of any kind have any authority all you want. That would be your deception in not knowing that your power comes from the true patriarch, the Father which art in heaven, and not some national or federal government in any sense, opinion, or de facto otherwise. But by usurpation, without lawful title, while an officer, king, or governor de jure is one who has just right or who has just claim and rightful title to the office or power, but has never had plenary possession of it, or is not in actual possession of it. People, you can only be in actual possession of these powers if you have it in your heart and mind. If in your mind you are subservient to this false patriarch and don't correctly fill out those documents, you are saying you're willing to receive that benefit rather than the true benefit already given. You're giving up the true benefit of your power and handing it over to them for fake de facto generosity. You can call it charity all you want, but it's de facto. It's illegal and illegitimate. So let's take a look again. So a wife de facto is one whose marriage, why now? My mouse is acting up now. Come on.
Get a tea bag and put it on your tooth.
So, a wife de facto is one whose marriage is voidable by decree, as distinguished from a wife de jure or a lawful wife. Why would you have to make a marriage voidable by decree unless the marriage itself was by decree? It wasn't done by a free will act and deed of the two private individuals. It was done by a decree through a third party, so the whole world could know. While in the meantime, if you just did it, like me and my companion, no paperwork, we just live it. We live it. We don't have to write it down. We live it. Ain't no one else can say she's not my wife because there's no way they can prove that there's even a requirement for documentation, let alone there's documentation that says she's somebody else's wife or I'm somebody else's husband. That's our choice, no one else's. But the term is also frequently used independently of any distinction from de jure. Thus, a blockade de facto is a blockade which is actually maintained, as distinguished from a mere paper blockade. Okay? As to de facto, corporation, court, domicile, government, and officer. See those titles. But it's telling you those are all de facto. In Old English law, it means respecting or concerning the principal act of a murder, which was technically denominated factum. Black's Law Dictionary for plenary: full, entire, complete, absolute, perfect, unqualified. I am unqualified. I am perfect. I am absolute. I am complete. I am entire. I am the full truth of myself, nothing else. I am plenary. What was plenary according to the other one? An admission, a full and complete confession or admission or confession, whether in civil or criminal law, is said to be plenary when it is, if believed, conclusive against the person making it. Everything they put in these courts are summary judgments. They have no plenary judgment. They don't do a plenary review. They don't do a full and complete review. Okay? Plenary suit: one that proceeds on formal pleadings. In the ecclesiastical courts and in admiralty practice, causes are divided into plenary and summary. I've got a list of 94 cases and they all say summary because no one did an entire review of the full, complete, absolute, unqualified record. That's why I'm coming forward with a tort claim against the state. See, their competency says they're supposed to review the record and that the record is supposed to have an integrity. And when I was screaming 8 years ago about how the record didn't have integrity and nobody wanted to look beyond the record that they have because they don't want to do a plenary review. They want to insist that this federal opinion applies to me, and it don't.
Well, that research is so important. It's funny you're talking about this today. I mean, I go back to all of those attorneys that I was talking about representing the chief counsel of the Internal Revenue. Obviously, these guys are partaking in all of these illicit gains and whatnot. You got some key players here. Well, that seems to consist of about at least 150 different attorneys from every state throughout the United States that represents the Council of the Internal Revenue Service. Well, I mean, I emailed them, what do I have to lose? And then, you know, it just builds off of that. So that's why this research is so important, If not, to just to try to wake up our fellow members of society here, that this shit just ain't right, man. You know, I've emailed the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, probably 40 or 50 people at the top of there. Just you know, trying to share information, truth.
Yeah, that's the importance of all this. Because this next part, I hope this hits everybody. I want you to pay real close attention to this, coming from that plenary suit, where we're going to review the entire record. It says, the former are those in proceedings, the order and solemnity of the law is required to be exactly observed, so that if there is the least departure from that order or disregard of that solemnity, the whole proceedings are annulled. The truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Remember that saying? That's what we need to bring in all of our acts and deeds. The ecclesia, the spirituality, the merits. You have to be able to live your life with spiritual credence and not some documentation.
That's the subject in the emails that I send, deeds, not words. Leadership forward with massive growth.
When it comes to police power, again, Black's fourth. The power vested in a state to establish laws and ordinances for the regulation and enforcement of its police as defined, as above defined. Enforcement of its police. That's policy. It's not a law, it's a policy. And they use their police to enforce that policy. It belongs to them, not me. That's the problem with that identification. It's an implied contract as a common carrier of information that belongs to the government's accounts. And it causes a public liability because you don't know what the fuck you're doing. That inherent and plenary power in state over persons and property, not people. You do not have power over people and their persons and property. You only have power over persons and property of the state. And what they're doing is they're using your dumbed down intellect through this public education to take your private property and convert it to public property so that they can then have jurisdiction over that person and its property because you keep signing in that person's name without knowing how to route it, without knowing the extent and importance of qualifying that signature, like we talked about earlier on the SS5, beneficiary, which enables the people to prohibit all things inimical to comfort, safety, health, and welfare of society. That inherent and plenary power in state over persons and property, which enables the people to prohibit all things inimical to comfort, safety, health, and welfare of society. We have the power and the duty and the responsibility to throw off despotic governance.
I like to say we were born and trusted to be able to precipitate precious metals because we ourselves precipitate precious metals like gold and silver. And that's how we're born in trust, because we have all of the sureties.
Yep. I'll agree with that. Now, this here is from that same Black's fourth law, and it has to do with the police power proceedings in bankruptcy under that plenary power. And it goes, say, as used in Banker Act July 1st, 1898, this term covers questions between the alleged bankrupt or the receiver or trustee on the one hand, and the general creditors as such on the other, commencing with the petition for adjudication and ending with a discharge, including matters of administration generally, and is distinguished from controversies at law and in equity arising in the course of bankruptcy proceedings, which involve questions between the receiver or trustee representing the bankrupt and his general creditors as such on the one hand, and adverse claimants on the other, concerning the property in possession of the receiver or trustee or of the claimants, to be litigated in appropriate plenary suits, and not affecting directly administrative orders and judgments, but only the extent of the estate to be distributed ultimately among general creditors. So what it's saying is we have the opportunity to bring a case, plenary review of the record, because there are errors and omissions in the record, and therefore we're not bringing a suit in controversy as making a claim against one of the actors or their offices or their title, but only against the record because it's errors and omissions. Because nobody's ever done a plenary review, and if you do a plenary review, you will find that the enumeration at birth is not qualified. Very simple. As it goes to Roman law, the Inquisition, anciently a species of commission granted by the comitia to one or more persons for the purpose of inquiring into some crime or public offense and reporting thereon. In later times, the question came to exercise plenary criminal jurisdiction, even to pronouncing sentence, and then was appointed periodically, and eventually became a permanent commission or regular criminal tribunal, and was then called Quaestio Perpetua. In other words, it's the eternal question in murders, the act of the murder. Was it done in spite? Was it planned? Was it done out of emotional response to something? That's what we're talking about, the act. That's the question. When you did that, question it. Why did you do it? What was the intent? Did you do it because you were induced to believe that you were a resident, and so you marked down resident and then signed without ever giving any kind of qualification because nobody ever told you about qualifying the document so that they wouldn't imply that you're a common carrier contractor taking on a public liability, or taking on a public obligation in exchange for the placing of a public liability on the record? See, when you go around making these charges and not realizing you're the one that's giving that charge to the system, and something goes wrong in that system, you go out and you charge up the guy's battery with your nice charger, but you blew his battery up doing so because you didn't do it right, right? Whose fault is it? It's yours for not knowing it. You're the creditor. You're supposed to know your informed use of credit. And this, again, is how we pay for our father's sins. We go out amongst the world as an 8-year-old, getting slapped on the back by dad saying, "Congratulations, son, I'm glad you graduated. Now go out there and act like an idiot the rest of your life," because I don't know what the fuck I was doing, but I made it. Got to start learning to be teachers. How do we correct it? Got to start learning to be teachers. You feed a man a fish by giving him you feed a man feed a man for a day by giving him a fish. You feed him for a lifetime if you teach him to fish. But again, the real inherent principle is that when you teach that man to fish, you don't teach him to fish so he can give fish to others. You teach him to fish so he too can teach others how to fish. If you're talking about that document informant, that's evidence of a contract, and it's actually certified as true and correct. But when we do a plenary review, we find out it's not true. It's not correct. Was Mom a resident, as it says on that form? Mom wasn't a resident. Therefore, it's not valid either. So even if the birth registration was valid, even if there was a birth registration in the United States, if Mom wasn't a resident, and she professed she was, it's a lie. The record doesn't stand to be true. It doesn't hold its integrity. You can't have a valid record that must hold its integrity that has no foundation. You can't start building a building off of the ground. It's got to have a solid foundation.
Yep, they would say in an old business law textbook, Keith, they would call this genuineness of accent. Sorry. There is none. There's no genuine properties to the contract.
Right. And so when it comes to that correcting mistakes, that's a matter of correcting the records, and that's that birth certificate that's not registered in the United States. Okay? There's no birth registration in the United States, but you have a system that allows you to get a birth registration, a birth certificate that is registered. It's evidence that it was registered in the state. And you got 2 seals and 2 signatures that you can qualify under their fidelity bond, place your value to it, and exchange it for like kind. Because it's not actually valid itself. You can't sell this one. But because it's a creature of the state, owing and doing the United States, you can hand it to the United States. Say, hey, these guys here, they use this instrument to invest all my life and didn't know it. And I'm the principal. I want my capital back in like kind.
I was getting ready to ask you, so what is your opinion on returning that birth certificate? Because just like you said, any benefit that we take, anytime we take a benefit from them, we're actually losing because it's not a benefit.
Right. It's Chapter 15 bankruptcy, cross-border claim, it's a cross-border counterclaim saying that because they operate in bankruptcy, this is how it worked out. I was assigned as authorized representative through the Social Security Administration to be a common carrier at the age of 18 using a address change request saying that I was a common carrier agent for the Postal Service as a resident for the local city. And it never was true. Had I known the details of the definitions and everything as they're used, I'd have never made that. I'd have never placed liabilities on the public record. None of that stuff. I'd have claimed my proper capacity as a living soul outside of the federal jurisdiction in this play game of words. And we have every right to create our own certificates. I can print up a certificate online right now, put a nice gold seal on it, embossed seal on it, everything. Stamps and other representatives of value. Blows it so far out of the water. If you don't understand that simple comment, obligations and other securities of the United States includes, and in between 2 commas in plain language, it says, all lowercase letters, stamps, and other representatives of value, telling us stamps are merely a representative of value. Federal
So
Reserve
basically fractional currency.
no,
No?
you can't limit it. It's other representatives of value. That hair that I just plucked from my lip has my representative of value. You can't distinguish it. You can't limit that other representatives of value. What is a representative value? It depends subjectively who you're talking to. That little girl living next door might value that lipstick more than I value that piece of hair. Never know.
So, shit, I had a question, and I feel like you would know the answer, and I just lost it. But I'll come back to it.
Let's see here. So yeah, it's important to understand the language, and what we're looking at here is the simplicity of the language.
Real quick, the coin bags for the post office. Do you know about those? Where you can actually deposit silver through the post office? Like for not just face value, but like they have coin bags that they keep like under lock and key at the post office for your silver and gold.
Right, and they're the third the obligated party as a escrow agent to hold that in abeyance, or to hold that as security to your instrumentalities that you're putting forth through your corporate entity. That's my take on it, and that's why I want to get that account set up with the Postal Service and have it funded with that credit system.
That Postal One account?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Online Postal One account that's tied directly to the general ledger. It's a master trust account.
Yeah, as soon as the trust is already there. Like, you don't have to do anything. As soon as you get your enterprise payment system account, the trust is there. Like, you're not creating the trust. And a lot of people have the idea confused. They think that they need to go and create the trust first and then go get the post office. And that's backwards.
Yeah, let me pull it up.
Because, see, I'm pretty far in that process. I actually had somebody from the post office here the other day. I've got my account to where I've got the permit linked up for the postage due. And now I'm just waiting to get the confirmation email so that I will have the informed visibility so I can do like the picture uploads and for the postage and stuff like that. And I'm on reserved mail. So the postmaster has to personally hand me my mail.
Right.
I had a P.O. box, but somehow I advanced up, I guess.
Yeah,
and I
don't.
also have a 12-digit zip code and a
nice.
railroad retirement.
Yeah, I was going to say that's on those accounts there. That's like the account on the back of the Social Security card. If you convert the letter to a number, it's a numerical number, and then put a 0 in front of it, that's the same kind of setup. Those 12-digit numbers like that. I believe if you put a 0 in front of it, it's set up to automatically route things. It's like a direct routing.
Well, I didn't set this up. That's the weird part.
That's why I say that's what I'm noticing on these accounts. When I see these accounts that are automatically set up and stuff, there's a 0 in the front. Look at the routing on most of these government accounts. You're going to find out it's a 0 or 3 zeros in front. So here we have that code you were talking about, 31 CFR 363.10. What is a Treasury Direct registered account? Okay, it's a registered Treasury Direct is a registered trademark. Okay, that's a registered trademark. And it says a Treasury Direct account is an online account maintained by us solely in your name, in which you may hold and conduct transactions in eligible book entry Treasury securities. right? Individual. A primary account for an individual may contain treasury securities purchased initially as book entry securities that are your personal holdings, registered in single owner, owner with beneficiary, and primary owner with secondary owner forms of registrations, gifts and savings bonds that have not yet been delivered, and converted savings bonds that were transferred from the conversion linked account. That's a state account. That's your Social Security account. Okay. Let's do 31 CFR 363.6.
Hi, Wizard.
How you doing, Christy? How you doing tonight? Good to see you.
Good. It's good to see you.
Sorry I'm delayed on that. I get caught up in my research and I don't
That's
pay
okay.
attention.
I was so excited to see that you were live. I was talking to Cynthia and she just said that you were live, and I was like, oh God, I've been trying to get over there when he's live. So we went running over here, got off the phone and went running over here to hang out.
No. Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I told you I would come over here and I just haven't caught you. So I was
Do you
glad
guys
to
hang out
catch
in
you.
Telegram?
Mhm.
See what?
Do you guys ever hang out on Telegram?
No, I don't personally. What's going on over there?
Well, it's just, I mean, I like YouTube, but it's a place where we get together and like have lives and stuff, but where everybody
Oh,
can talk.
oh, really? Maybe
And
we'll check it out. I mean, I go over to Discord sometimes. I don't think Discord is user friendly.
I don't either. I get so confused and backwards in there that
Yeah.
I just don't even go there. But Telegram, we've got a couple good groups over there that
Oh, do
like
you?
we just get together and work on shit like just like this, doing our research.
Okay. Oh, well, if you put it like a link or something, we'll check it out. Cynthia and I might go over there and check it out. If
Yeah,
you
do that.
and Wizard, if you want to, do you want to do that too, Wizard? You go over there, and hang out, and see what it's like.
Well, I get on Telegram. I got a couple specific groups I get on, but not much else. But
Oh, and I just download the app or whatever.
yep.
Okay, all right.
Now here,
Cynthia, you do it too.
we have 363.6. What special terms do I need to know to understand this part? And it says account means a Treasury Direct registered account as described in 363.10 where we just left.
Mm.
Authentication means confirming that the person accessing a Treasury Direct account is the same person whose identity was initially verified at account establishment. How do you do that? That's the birth certificate. This is what they mean by authenticating at the federal level. You're authenticating that you're the same person that's making claim to this Treasury account. And it says beneficiary refers to the second individual named in the registration of a definitive savings bond. Now, the definitive savings bond is that birth registration, that birth certificate. And the first individual's name is the state of Iowa. The second individual's name is yours. You are the beneficiary.
Yeah.
A converted definitive savings bond, which is somebody that's already entered that bond into the book entry system, which is electronic records. And that's a security purchased through the Treasury Direct system. Registered, pay attention to this. This is what's helping me and my companion with everything we're doing on these third-party debt collectors. Registered example, John Doe, Social Security number 123-45-67809. POD. Payable on death. Not payable during the lifetime.
Yeah.
It's payable on death. Everything I got coming in during my lifetime is coming to me and my estate. Once I'm dead and I can no longer have use of it, now third-party debt collectors can come in and take what they are owed, if they are owed.
Wait, this is a life insurance policy?
This is for anything in your life. You're not supposed to be paying for anything. These are matters of necessity of life. What is there a cost of living? Who honestly believes in a cost of living?
I guess I believed in the cost of living. Like I always thought that there was a certain cost of living and that's how they would gauge things. I don't know.
Cost
That's
of
wrong.
living. Cost of living was designed by a third-party guy with puppet strings that could stand outside, puppet control everything while you played with his money. Understand the concept of interest. If you've got a guy that creates money
Mhm.
and he creates $10
Mhm.
and you want to borrow $1 so you can buy something from somebody else because they believe in that money system now too, but they're only going to sell their wares for that monetary system. So you need $1 to buy something from him. You borrow $1 from him, he's going to charge you interest. Okay, I'm going to borrow you $1 to go buy that, but now you owe me $1.10. Where do you go to get that 10 cents to pay him back his $1.10 along with that dollar? Don't you have to go right back to him? Do you ever pay the interest? In reality, you can't.
Yeah. Okay. I can't do it. No.
Because now you do. Now what? You had to borrow $2 from him so you could pay him back the $1.10.
Yeah. Right. That's
Now you owe
how
him $2 plus interest. That's $2.20, and you only got
exactly.
90 cents.
Yeah.
So
That's
you give
how
him
we get in
90 cents.
debt.
So you give him 90 cents. You still owe him $1.30.
Yeah, I
How
know.
did
That's
how
how
did
you
paying
get in
off
debt.
interest help you? Exactly. It's
Mhm.
impossible. You cannot do it, folks.
And sometimes, like, yeah, if you just pay the minimum payment on a credit card, it'll take you 30 years to pay off, you know, like $500 or some shit. You know what I mean? Like, it'll take forever to pay it off.
Yeah.
It takes forever. Mhm.
Well, that's the impossibility of having that debt.
Yeah,
With
you
that,
have to
with the
always
interest
pay.
system, with taxes and inflation, you're
Yeah.
never going to get rid of the interest because of the way it's designed.
And I didn't know this, but I just found this out recently that it doesn't it's bad on your credit rating for you to pay off all your bills. It's always good to have money or for you to owe money and for you to be paying on a credit card versus paying it off when you
You're
pay
duped.
it.
You're
Yeah.
duped in that too. You're duped in that too. What's the credit system? Let me ask you something. If you've got a credit score, then where's the debt score? If you've got a credit score, shouldn't you have something available to you
Here's the thing, they've tricked
to
us into
balance?
making us think we have to pay these bills.
Mhm.
But see, really, we're not supposed to be paying the bills. Nobody has an income. Your income is zero, no matter whether you go and you work your butt off at a job or not. Your income is zero. All you're doing is paying
Yeah.
taxes on anything, ever.
Well, and remember, when you're working that job down there at McDonald's and they say that's an income, that's not an income. That is
What
not
is
an
it?
income. An income you have to invest financially into something. In other words, when you get your paycheck from McDonald's, you go to the bank, you cash it, or you have it electronically deposited. Most people do now, direct deposit.
Mhm.
You take some of that money, you go down to an investment firm and you invest it in something. And then it goes out there and you wait until a certain time to sell off and you make a profit. That's an income. You put something out and it came back as a profit. That's an income. When you go to work for McDonald's and you exchange your sweat equity labor for a paycheck, that is a paycheck. It is not an income.
Okay.
You have to literally invest in something to have an income. He got compensated in exchange for his labor. The contract is done at the end of the day. Even if he's still employed and he decides he doesn't want to go to work anymore, at the end of the day where he last worked, that was the end of the contract. It doesn't renew again until the next day where he's qualified to go in and put on that uniform. The boss is still in good graces with him he can work again. But it's a given choice. Whereas an investment, you have to put something out there in that system and let it float around for a while.
So you know about the Social Security Act of 1933, 1934, right?
Yeah, all part of the New Deal.
I
And
know
they'd
you
be,
do. I was asking her because I think in order to fully understand that whole idea, you need to understand what happened with the Social Security Act and why we are not expected to pay anything. Because they took all of our gold and silver, which is all of our legal tender, all of our actual money. They took it all from us back then. And in return, they promised to pay all of the bills because we had no funds. We had no real money. They gave us monopoly money and told us to go have fun.
well, and see
And, most people.
the premise is when they took gold and silver out of circulation, there's no lawful way to pay a debt anymore, because the only thing you can pay them with is a promise to pay. That's what happens when you're born through the enumeration at birth. It gives you the privilege to defer a debt to a later date. That's what you actually take upon in that enumeration at birth, is the fact that you're willing to be a debtor and say, okay, yeah, I have a cost of living, but I want to defer the debt until a later time. You admit self-willingly that you're a debtor. You're not. Everybody's been indoctrinated to believe that.
Yeah. Yeah, I certainly have. Yeah.
So I actually heard something today and it made it make so much sense. So I've been feeling for a while now that silver was going to skyrocket, which we all know everything's about to shift. We know that our financial system is flipping. I feel like tomorrow, but that's beside the point. I digress. We we know that all of this stuff is coming. Sorry. Shoot.
You're okay.
Kentucky weather is awful.
Yeah, that's all right.
But what people are not realizing is that the silver holds so much weight. It's so important because, for one, it's the only way to legally transfer title. It has to go through the mail, and it has to have silver, and that our stamps are silver and gold backed. But we have a silver cord when we come here. It is the umbilical cord that connects us to our mother. And do you think there's any correlation to the silver cord and the silver coin and the value that we hold with the silver?
Not particularly, but I will say that the getting rid of silver and gold for payment, we now have a system that the stamps are not backed by silver and gold. They're backed by a real estate investment trust.
Yeah, I see that. Mm-hmm.
It's a Postal Realty Trust Inc., and they're the ones that hold the real estate investment trust. And they're the ones that, like I said, each address is a street name security created by the municipality. Therefore, they are the name holder, and they bond that address for its postal road jurisdiction for the delivery and distribution of mail, services, and goods. And that is bonded with the Postal Service for those deliveries of such through the international shipping from Admiralty Maritime to the final destination, each and every address.
Did they used to be funded by gold and silver? Because, the Red Fox stamps, they are gold backed. I know that for fact.
Correct.
They have gold in the lettering.
But when they
Liberty $1.
But when they took the gold and silver out, they had to rectify that. That's when the Postal Service got in the real estate investment game.
Okay. So the older ones, so like red and green older stamps would be your gold and silver, but you have to look hard for those and be careful because they're tricky. Okay, I'll shut up.
Well, when they were produced, they were backed by gold and silver, and they're always going to be backed. It's just that now that things have been converted, they're still backed. They're just backed by the same thing everything else is backed by: real estate investment trusts. That's how you protect your private property. Real estate investment trusts.
Are people still are people still trying to save their silver and gold? Is that still something that people are doing, or no?
Hell
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
Silver
All kinds.
surety bond. 21 pieces of silver will buy you a house, sis.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Mhm.
Yeah.
I had heard that I'd heard silver had gone up.
Yeah, I've got my own bars of silver, my own silver coins. I got a little
Oh, let me
diamond
see.
in
You
there.
have a whole
I've got
bar.
I've got a diamond. I've got $2 bills, sequential
I've got a
ordered
bunch of
$2
two
bills.
Me
dollar
too.
bills. What about the $2 bills? What's going
I've
on
got
with those? I've got
oh,
terrible feedback, don't I?
$2 bills has the Declaration of Independence, and yes, you do have feedback.
I'm so sorry. I'm looking for my headphones, but I'll try and mute in between.
Fun fact, a Morgan silver dollar pre 1933 can be used as a get out of jail free card.
It's real property.
What do you mean?
It's got value and it's got value and substance, which is extrinsic, and their entire fiat system. I don't care what dollar amount is on that piece of paper. It's only intrinsic. It's only valued in that piece of paper. So
What
my
does that mean?
one silver coin worth $30 on the silver market is worth more than $1 million bill.
And it's what year is it?
Before
1930,
1933.
prior 1933, because it's got
Oh.
silver. It's the silver content in it, and what it is you've got substance that is immediately exchangeable. Whereas that $1 million, that's
Mhm.
all. That's all a deferment of a debt. That's a
And
promise.
it's before 2023 or 1923, or what did you say?
1933.
1933.
33.
1933.
So the reason it's before 1933 is because in 1933 they went from 90% silver to 60, and then I believe in the 70s, I could be wrong about that, they went down to 40%, and now they're none.
Oh my God, I just was dead broke, and I just spent like a bunch of $2 bills to put it in my gas tank like a few weeks ago. Because I didn't have any money, and now I'm like, oh my God, I shouldn't have done that. I should have, but that's probably very rare for that to happen, right?
But
Like,
lucky for you, most people
mm-hmm,
don't know the value, so it's
mm-hmm,
not hard to find a coin dealer around that has them
yeah,
for sale for not much at all.
really,
But I'd do that soon because they are going to be going up.
okay. Yeah, I was gonna go into I'm going into like a coin shop or whatever tomorrow because like I said, I went through some money issues or whatever, and I just got out of the hospital. I just got out of the hospital yesterday, but I had spent those $2 bills and to put in my gas tank, but I'd been to a pawn shop like one time, and then I went recently and pawned a ring that I had. And made the payments on it or whatever, and I have the last payment is was actually, it was due on the 9th, but I was in the hospital, so I'm gonna I'm gonna go tomorrow and get it out or whatever. But that, you know, I don't know. I just needed that money, but it makes me nervous. I've been nervous ever since I put that ring in there. I don't want anything to happen to it, but I needed the money. So I will never buy jewelry again. Like when I saw like the jewelry that they have at pawn shops, I thought, oh my God, all these years I spent so much money on stupid jewelry when they had so much stuff there for so cheap. I
Do you know
couldn't
about
believe it.
postal money orders?
No, I don't know anything about any of that stuff.
Tell her.
Mhm.
So the post office, I don't recommend a dollar one. It works on a dollar one if they don't stamp the back of it, but they're catching on and they're starting to stamp the back. But say you have $5 or $10, you can go put that on a postal money order, and they are negotiable up to $1,000 for every money order.
Okay,
So
wait, what?
while you're
All
broke,
right. Mhm.
you
Yeah.
don't have to be.
Okay. Okay, you tell me what I do now. What do I do?
So I've got, if you go on my Telegram, because that's the easiest place for me to actually show you what to do.
Okay.
I have a group in there. I put it in the link down here, or I put it in the comments. I have some
Oh, okay.
really awesome people. We've been working the post office. I've been studying the post office. And that's how I wound up here, is because I found El Perro's videos on the master account. And I definitely feel like the post, well, like if your house is being foreclosed on, they're not foreclosing on your house. They're foreclosing on that mailbox. They're foreclosing on
Yep.
that address. It's not the house itself. It's that mailbox. It's the postal route. And a lot of people don't know that. But if you go back to the beginning of the United States, actually, we're going to go back to a year before that. The post office was established before the Revolutionary War, because we needed like we needed an intermediary, somebody that could go through and not get hurt. So that's where that whole "don't shoot the messenger" thing came from, was because we needed somebody during the Revolutionary War. So that's when the post office was enacted. And then all of our roads were created by the post office. All of our railroads were created by the post office. They are the only true bank. They are the courts. They are, everything ties into them. And I believe that so I know that the master trust account is there. How do we get the estate? Because that's what I want. I want the land, the
The
property, the mineral
the
rights.
the estate is consists of all real and personal effects. So when it comes to how do you get the estate, you've already got the estate. It's a matter of what is the estate. Do
Okay,
you have land?
land patents and stuff that my family
Right.
had, because
So
they
you have to
can't
bring
go.
those. So you have to bring those forth, and those are held by the state in abeyance until the rightful owner comes forth to make the valid claim. All you got to do is show that you're making a valid claim as a rightful heir successor to that land.
So that would be trace the lineage, and then
Yep.
do the trace on the deeds all the way back to the patent,
Yep.
and show transfer of title every time. And then you would have to go and put it in like the newspaper that you're reclaiming it for 6
Yep.
months, right?
Yep.
Or 6
Yep.
weeks, I mean.
Yep.
And then you would actually have to live on the land, and then you would take it to
Maintenance.
probate.
Yep. Maintenance, and then show your maintenance with all your efforts and everything in the probate court to have it removed from tax rolls.
That's
And
y'all. I'm
you
about to
just
take
take
my
that,
ass some land.
and you take the house that you're living on or you're living in,
You gonna take it
then
down the road with you, sis?
oh no. Oh
You're gonna take a tent, a camper, whatever you got to do to get on that land and get that land, because these land patents, it's not okay. Seriously, to me, it's not about the land. I could give a crap less about the land. Well, I mean, I want the land, but that's not it. I want the land, the water rights, the mineral rights, the lumber rights, grazing rights, all of that. I want that, because
Right.
they're collecting off of all of that.
Well, then it goes to the stewardship. More importantly, not so much as a prevention of protecting or preventing them from making money off it, because you can work agreements in watershedding and stuff where they can make money off of stuff, but as long as they're supporting you in your compliance with stewarding the land, and that means it prevents them from using it for any kind of industrial or commercial aspect.
Oh
You know what I
wow.
mean?
Where did you put that in the chat? I don't see it. Like, did you put
Yeah,
it?
can you post that again?
Yeah, I don't see it, honey. But it put that in the chat, and then
Yeah.
oh, Pero, I'll join your Facebook as well. I see that in here, right? Is that or
I
no?
don't do
That's
anything
Yep.
on my Facebook. I mean, you can
yeah, but
join it, but
I know he does. So it looks like he's got to put Facebook. So I don't do much on that either, but I'll like do that on his or whatever.
Well, I'm not real active there,
Although
but oops, we lost her again. I'm not real active there, but if you're going to join anything, go to the freedomfromgovernment.com and check out the lawful living site. It's actually two sites in one, guys. Freedomfromgovernment.com
okay.
or .org, excuse me. And then on that, you'll see a lawful living community. You sign up for the lawful living community, and there's all kinds of information. We've got all kinds of success in all the way across the board: child support, child recovery, or child custody, search and seizure, traffic, all kinds of stuff, all kinds of success stories, foreclosures, evictions, everything. So go join
Okay.
freedomfromgovernment.org and get onto the lawful living site. That's where all those information is. But freedomfromgovernment.org has the one with the plates and the he's got a few books on there and things like that that you can research as the starting material to learning how to live as your own self-governing body.
Yeah, you'll have to help me because like I'm in transition, just as being a widow. So I'm trying to just get by now. Like people think that I don't know, I didn't even occur to me, but Cynthia was saying, yeah, people think that you probably had like a big life insurance policy and all people don't realize like all the stuff that you have to pay off, and I didn't expect to be a widow at the age that I am, and
Girl, it don't matter what nobody else
Yeah.
has to say. They
you
are
know
always going to have something to say. Always.
yeah,
And when
it's
it comes down to correcting the records, you got to understand if you truly weren't supposed to pay for anything and you've paid all your life, like I showed you, it's payable on death. Okay, payable on death. That's the whole thing about the nationality and the federal government. It took away our ability to pay things in gold and silver of even exchange and gave us a way to defer the debt to a later date. So
yeah,
that's all we have. Well, if that's all we have, then why are they collecting from us while we're alive?
And why are they
yeah,
getting $4 quadrillion a year out of our sewage?
Exactly. And that, let alone the fact again remains that no matter how you look at it, this government only gets its just powers from the people. Therefore, it only gets its credit from the people. The people are the true creditors. So again, nobody's a debtor. And there is no such thing as a cost of living. You've been duped. You understand how the paperwork works. You start working the paperwork.
We actually have an allowance for living through the Internal Revenue Service that they give us yearly. We just don't know how to properly claim it. You would do that on like your 1041 through the
Right.
IRS.
Yep.
You
And
can actually pay yourself $250,000 a year
do
for
you do
administration.
that? Are you able to, have you done that where
I
you
am in the process. I've actually got all my forms filled out. I just actually had a court case I had a couple court cases this week because I got arrested twice over the last few weeks or back to back or whatever.
Oh no, I'm sorry.
It's okay. I had a felony case and I got the first night I got arrested. All of those charges I have had thrown out. My husband's still incarcerated, but I'm enjoying the break. Besides
Uh, do you do the same like the auditing and stuff? Is that what you do?
you do the A's, B's, and C's, but it's the 1041 or the 1040 that's really most people don't know to
she
do.
she was talking about the First Amendment auditing. She's wondering what you do to get in jail.
Oh, I actually I just wore the right hat. I took my birth certificate first off because that's the all caps name that's in question. I'm just the authorized representative agent for the principal, and that capacity, like right there, that's where the capacity I
I've
want.
heard El Perro talk about the all capital birth certificate. I've heard him speak about that several times.
So
So I
that
do know what you're talking about there.
and that's what they're wanting. They want that all caps, the birth certificate, because that's the securities that's where all the money is. So, or that's where they pull the money from. Anyways, so I invoked the authorized representative agent for the principal, and I let them know that I was a friend of the court and that, I followed their procedures as far as I didn't pass the bar until I had permission to go across. I motioned to dismiss based off of violation of my Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights. And if I would have had more time, I never would have went into their courts. But I was also on pretrial. So I was on a conditional release. My first bond was $5,000. And uh, the conditions of my release were that I go see pretrial conference and go get set up in their system. Well, I was in jail again by the time I was supposed to go see pretrial conference, so that didn't happen. Well, they called me the day before my court case, and they were like, well, you need to get registered before your court, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I sure will.
Registered.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I sure will.
What do you want me to pledge?
So I didn't do it, obviously. And they couldn't have, but they would have, they actually did try to, whenever I was walking out, the pretrial conference was like, she didn't, and the prosecuting attorney was like, she's the authorized representative agent. You can't touch her.
Yep.
Also, the other thing I found very interesting is the prosecuting attorney referred to himself as the minister of justice. And I was thinking before my case, I'm like, okay, I am a postmaster, I'm a notary public, and I'm a ordained minister. I have to be able to invoke some sort of like judiciary power.
Well, that's what he's doing. He said he's the minister. Really? You're invoking the ecclesiastical court in my name? He's done. You're invoking the ecclesiastical court in my name, sir?
El Perro knows what he's doing because, like, he's got the court. The court has a restraining order against him. Like, he just bothered them so many times.
He probably disqualified them every time.
Well, it comes down to the reality of the truth. When you speak the truth.
Yeah, he has like done this forever, and he's
They have
literally...
they have a hard time understanding the truth. The practice of the spiritual or ecclesiastical courts, to which is added a brief discourse of the structure and manner of forming the libel or declaration. This is your declaratory judgment.
Oh wow, El Perro, I'm sorry, I gotta drop because I've got another thing I've got to do, but I'll be back or whatever. And thank you for having me up.
You bet.
I appreciate it. Make sure you get that information for me so I can like join.
It's Starseed Problems 22 on Telegram. It's not letting me.
Is this what you put on in the back? Is that what it is?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, let me get that before I go.
Yeah, it's going to ask you to click it. When you click on that, it's going to ask you to open Telegram, and then you can join. So if you don't have Telegram downloaded yet, you got to download it first, and then you can.
I've got it. So I just put my phone number in here. My regular phone number.
Yeah.
That's what it says. Okay.
Unless you got a fake phone number or something.
Okay. All right. Okay. And then that's it. Okay, cool. All right. Thank you. It's so nice to meet you. And I'll be back or whatever.
All right. Thanks for stopping in, sister.
All right. Thank you
Always
for having me.
You.
It was interesting.
What are your thoughts on a family Bible?
I have one.
You do? Very cool. He's going to get his. He's got one. Yay. I've been working on mine because I feel like that's what we need to be. Did you go to get yours? All right. So, I am currently working on mine. I feel like that's important. That's cool. Yeah, I feel like that's super important in this process too.
Notice, oops, I'm dropping stuff out the front here. Notice there's no last names, guys. No last names. Last name doesn't have anything to do with it, folks. That's the commercial name. That's where you go forth out into the world. Your privacy remains private. None ya business, because we ain't in business. Pure and simple. And with that, we have come to the close of our session for tonight. I hope everybody got some good comprehension out of that. Like I've said many times before, I can explain it to you, but I cannot comprehend it for you. However, if you refer back to this video, you can see the sources. Like I said, it's Black's Law of Fourth. And then you can look up the other terms and all of those terms in your regular dictionaries and other sources. Don't ever believe me. Don't believe the neighbor. Don't believe the government. For crying out loud, don't believe your mother. Do your research so you know. That's why we do this. That's the importance of teaching. Like John said earlier, that's what we truly need to learn, is how to teach what we're learning. What do you got on the way out, sister?
Thank you for having me up. I have been wanting to catch you for a while. I came into one and it didn't go very good. So I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna come up there again because I really just wanted to pick your brain. So I appreciate you letting me up.
You bet. And I joined the Telegram thing there for you. So
awesome. You will probably be a great addition to the group just because you have so much knowledge on this stuff. You know, I've been studying it and learning, and I do my due diligence as far as I have an entire law library at my house. It's a little ridiculous.
Nice.
Oh yeah. I mean, I have so many hundreds of books, anything. So
I've gone through and done some of my own printing. I've got this whole file cabinet drawer full of things that I printed and bound together myself.
So this is just a couple of the books that I've got. I've got some banker books though that talk about solvency. So I was looking into solvency and IRAs and bankruptcy, along with them being connected with the trust. I think it's like ninth or bankruptcy chapter 9 or something like that deals with that. Maybe it's higher, I'm not sure. But that's what I've been learning about. And then the railroads. The railroads is directly connected to the comptroller.
Yeah, everything that's brought in through the imports and exports mainly is distributed across land, like your minerals and stuff like that you pull out of the ground, done by rail car. Your coal, silver, all of it, all done by rail car. Nice.
I've got these 3D. Hold on, because I don't know what the fuck to do with them. I don't know what to do with these books. They're called 3D settlements or systematic settlements 3D. And then I've got these.
Social Security practice guide.
Oh yeah, I've got some American jurisprudence. I've got the post office American jurisprudence on the way. It's coming in the mail, so I'm excited to get a hold of that one. But yeah, I'm always in a book. Like people just know, like, oh, if Starcy's over here, then she's like somewhere stuck in a book. Don't worry about her.
Yeah, same here. That's my entertainment.
Me too.
All right.
But
well,
thank you for having me up. I appreciate it, and I hope to get to talk to you some more.
You bet. Absolutely
Bye,
appreciate it. You guys have a good night, and hit that like, share, and subscribe button on your way out, folks. And you know me, I love you, but I don't give a rat's ass whether you love me back. That's to say, I don't care if you hate me. I don't care if you don't respect me. That's on you. So may God bless you, and have a good night. We'll see you next time.